I'm hearing the complaint that so many of these areas that are being attacked and targeted by these youth criminals are previously suburban family areas that were safe when they moved in there. So the people who live there are young families, single women, lots of children, and the people don't know how to handle violent invaders or how to deter them. It's almost like they're preying on the poor innocent sheep in this situation. Is that part of the reason people are so outraged here as well, because they're just moving in to the most innocent and peace-abiding people around?
Well, look, you know, I live in an area where this sort of stuff just didn't happen before. So, you know, we've lived in the same house for almost 25 years. Nothing has happened in our street until the last 13 months. Okay? Nothing has happened ever. So it's happened now. There's been an explosion of it. And I've got some stats, if I just refer to some clippings from the Courier Mail. I mean, you've got massive increases in various crime categories. For example, assault since 2015, when I lost office, my government lost office, assaults have doubled, unlawful entry has doubled, and robbery is up 3.5 times. Unlawful use of a motor vehicle is up 3 times. So, for example, back in 2015, just to give you the figures, there were 1,984 unlawful uses of a motor vehicle. In 2023, it was 7,332. So these are the stats as reported by the Courier only a fortnight ago. So it is just out of control. You know, I don't want to sort of downplay or sort of trivialise this by saying what I'm about to say, but it is a huge political issue now. It is a huge community safety, social issue. People are terrified and it has to be fixed. But it is also, this shows politically in nature, it is a political issue, and depending on the response of the Premier and depending on whether the LNP are prepared to muscle up and offer some real answers, that will, I think, determine the outcome of this state election.
Oh, you're absolutely right. And it's extremely frustrating to note that it's only when there is mass social media outrage over a particularly violent incident that the Premier comes forward and says, oh, we're going to make some changes. They're not making changes on their own. They have to be bullied by the public into making changes because they're frightened they're going to lose the election if they don't. It's a worrying behaviour from a government if that's how they're operating. But, you know, these just aren't...
Well, he hasn't... Yeah, well, the Premier... You're right. Sorry to interrupt, Alexandra, but... Yeah, there was a notorious incident a few weeks ago where a journalist, I think from Sky News, asked the Premier a question at a Queensland Media Club event, and the Premier sort of giggled about it. The reason he giggled about it because he saw it through his political lens. Miles views things through the lens of politics, not through the need to get outcomes sort of delivered. And he saw it as a political question as opposed to a question about an urgent community safety thing. So he couldn't help himself when the mask dropped, and we need him to stop considering it as a political issue to be managed through spin and press conferences, etc. He needs to actually make changes. One important change, as I said before, was to see the Police Commissioner not renew. I'm afraid I feel strongly that she had let Queenslanders down in a variety of ways, but let's hope that her successor can really do a better job.
Well, just before we go to our next break, I want to just ask you a follow-up question to that. You say this issue is particularly political, and I believe you. I think it might be very political for them. Do you think that the Conservatives up there in Queensland are prepared to take this public safety measure it really is to the election and really run this hard against the Labor Party? And if they did that, do you think they might actually win?
Well, I think they certainly could win on this issue. And again, I really want to stress, I want an outcome. And the outcome isn't I want them to win the election. I want them to get elected and fix the problem if the Labor Party won't. And if the Labor Party can fix the problem between now and the election, I'll give them every compliment, every amount of credit for that. Okay, so let's be clear about the problem needs to be fixed. The trouble with David Christofouli and the LNP opposition is that they essentially pull their punches on this issue. They have for over 18 months, had many, many opportunities to prosecute this issue really hard and to actually, dare I say it, go for the jugular politically and also tell us what they would do. There've been a couple of things they've talked about, like breach of bail and repealing this sort of criteria up here that the magistrates are instructed, which is that jail is the last resort sort of thing. And those things obviously work, but the LNP, for example, haven't been prepared to say we should have diversionary pre-jail type things like boot camps. Now, that was a policy of the LNP when we were in government. The Labor Party got rid of them in 2015 because they couldn't have that sort of stuff. They were philosophically, ideologically opposed to that sort of thing. The LNP haven't been game enough to say that they would do that. I certainly haven't noticed. But instead, you've got people from other conservative right-wing parties, I think probably KAP have been talking about it, also even One Nation. So, the trouble I'm painting to you is that the LNP in Queensland at the moment could well blow this election because they're really lining up more with sort of Pizzuto in Victoria or Zach, whatever his name was, over in WA, led the WA Liberals to an extraordinary defeat. So, that's where they're going to be. And maybe you want to talk about the polls, but the polls aren't looking good for them either.